Well, welcome back everyone to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. Today we're going to talk about Pauper and about the commoner formats in TCGs and why I think some people are wrong when they talk about them. As a store, we have made Monday nights our Pauper night. And if you're in Teays Valley, come hang out on Monday nights at 7 o'clock for Pauper, because Pauper is, I think, the best format to create a local community around. Let me tell you why. A lot of people, and this is where I think people are wrong, a lot of people only focus on the price of Pauper, and that's a very good sales pitch. The price of Pauper is very cheap. You can get a tier 1 deck for about like $60 on TCG Player. But when people only focus on the price, I think they miss out on what I think is the best part of the format, which is the amazing diversity in the meta. We utilize, we have all these like decks that people can just borrow. We've got like Red Burn and Mono White and Dimir Fairies and Affinity. It's really, really easy for us because it's so cheap to have decks available for people to just hang out and play. But the sales pitch isn't how cheap it is. The sales pitch is that it's an incredibly fun and diverse meta that is also very interactive. And that is what I think people mostly get wrong about Pauper or about commoner formats, is they focus so much on the price. And honestly, people don't like to hear that their cards are not valuable. And that's not like for the most part, it's like an easy thing to get into, but people like to feel like they have something of value. So I don't think that's the best sales pitch. One of the better sales pitches is to be able to say, hey, if you try a deck out and you don't like it, you can play a different one. But the meta is so diverse. If you take a look at Magic the Gathering Goldfish or wherever you look at your Magic decks, there are an incredible amount of decks that you can play. I play Pauper Elves, which is like tier 2, and I still feel like I can compete with nearly any of these decks when I'm playing. So it's definitely an interesting format, and like I said, it's very interactive as well. Now, as a store, this isn't going to make you a bunch of money. Obviously, people aren't buying booster boxes for common cards. That being said, I do think Wizards of the Coast eventually will have Pauper decks, which I think will be really, really good. I don't carry the Pioneer decks, but one of the issues with those Pioneer decks and all that format is that they can't really make the decks as good as they actually are, because they can't put all those mythics into those decks, because then they just tank the price of mythics. But in Pauper, you don't have to worry about tanking the price of the singles, so you can actually make very, very good pre-con decks. And I think that will happen, and when it does happen, it will be much better for a store to be able to sell a $30 Pauper deck as opposed to you having to go to a TCG Player and spend like $50 to $60 with shipping and all that stuff and wait for 30 people to send you cards. So I do think in the future, if Wizards goes with some sort of Pauper pre-con, I think it would be really, really good. That being said, I think another really great point of Pauper is the downshifts. And when the Swifsphere here was downshifted to double masters, it really brought up a lot of conversations of how will this change and warp the meta. I think that's really, really great, because then you have things like this in the new boxes that actually perform really well. And it also creates people brewing. And this is a thing that I think as power shift and as power creep happens in the different formats, it makes it more and more difficult for players to brew decks rather than just going with the net decks. And in our local meta, the Swifsphere really changed things up, and people really were pursuing, at least the first couple of weeks, changing up their decks and trying to figure out a way to utilize this. And it was really fun for the local meta to see some brewing happening, and it was really cool to see people wanting commons from the new set in these different borders and that kind of thing. At the end of the day, I think the reason that common-only formats like Pauper should exist, and the focus on those formats should exist, is to create a new and exciting way to play the game, not just a cheap way to play the game. I think that when you focus on it being just a cheap way to play the game, you kind of undersell the idea that it's incredibly competitive and fun and interactive, and it can create a community. And it can create a community in a way that's really easy for people to get involved, as well as really easy for people to show up with a new deck. deck and want to explore something different and unique. When you have some of these expensive formats like Modern, it's just like, why would I spend $800 on another deck if I don't know if I like it? But in Pauper, I can pick up another $50 deck and be able to really explore the format in a big way, which makes you more entrenched in that format. So when you go to encourage somebody to play either Pauper or Flesh and Blood's commoner format, maybe don't focus on the amount of money that it costs to play. Maybe that's the initial conversation, but make sure you get to the point of talking about how great the format is and how fun it is to play. If you're in Teays Valley or you're at the local store, come hang out on Monday nights at 7 o'clock to play Pauper. It's a great community. It's a great group of people. We would love to see you here. The rest of you guys, remember to be kind to the people around you. Let me know what you think about Pauper or Commoner in the comment section below. I would love to hear your thoughts and your favorite decks, and what does your local community and meta look like for these games? What does your store do? If you're a store owner, what does your store do to encourage play in a format like this? Hope you have yourself a fantastic day. Be kind to the people around you. We'll see you again next video.